Old gen is killing Rust Console. Old gen is holding back the game from... Old gen is the reason why Rust Console doesn't have better graphics. Old gen is the reason why we do not have better FPS. Those are just a few that I've pulled out of the hat from the community that say Rust Console's progression is being halted by old gen consoles, and in today's video we're going to be talking about just that. Is old gen really holding back Rust Console, and if it is, how much by, if it's little or whether it's big? First and foremost, Rust Console was launched for old gen. Now, a lot of us played this game from old gen, whether it was the Xbox One. That's the console I had. Do you remember the Xbox One? That's like over a decade old. Yeah, I started playing Rust Console on that console. And when we think of old gen consoles, we always think of them as if it's the Xbox One, where it's got literally 5 FPS. It's really bad, really laggy, specifically talking Rust Console. It's very outdated. However, you have consoles like the Xbox One Series S, which is one of the higher up old gen consoles. So it's still considered old gen, but it's the newest version of old gen consoles before they switched over to the Xbox Series S and X. Truth be told, it did run pretty badly. I tried the Xbox Series S, as I have one, or the Xbox One Series S. I tried it on Rust Console and I went into a build server where obviously that's where you stress test stuff, and the frames were terrible. The lag was terrible. And you know, you get that kind of stuff on new gen already, but with old gen it was bad. But those consoles alone, the newer versions of old gen or the highest version before they switched, can run Rust Console okay. But this game will require you to just invest in a new gen console. Whilst, you know, the devs and people within, you know, like the Discord community and all that, they will probably say that there's a lot of the community that still plays on old gen, sure, but each day, especially running up to Christmas, you're going to be seeing a lot of people jump into new gen, and for good reason. Not just to play Rust Console, but to play other games. Well, you know, you don't need to play other games on old gen consoles. Sure, there's a backlog of games to play that are for the old gen consoles, but new gen consoles is just the way forward. You know, it happens all the time with the Xbox 360. Switching up consoles is just a natural cycle that consoles from Sony and Microsoft do. They bring out new consoles that have better optimization, better graphics. So sure, I get the opinion of people wanting to stay on old gen because whether they don't have enough money or they simply feel like they don't need to have one is within their own right. But you're holding yourself back is pretty much what I'm trying to say. Now, is old gen holding Rust Console back? Now, I'd be absolutely deluded to say, you know, old gen itself is not holding Rust Console back. There will always be, you know, some wiggle room for it to either be blatant or minuscule as to if old gen is holding this game back. Sure, if it moved to new gen, you'd see a lot of new things, better graphics, all of that sort of stuff. There wouldn't be as much rapid growth as people still, you know, see. Just because you have a newer console doesn't mean the updates are going to happen 100 times quicker. This is the 11 we're still working with here. You know, they're not the biggest dev team. I'm pretty sure they don't even work in office, as far as I know. They're like a work from home sort of group. You know, this isn't Ubisoft or Activision or anyone like that working on Rust Console. This is the 11 respectively. You know, it's not going to happen any faster with the updates. Sure, it might run smoother. Sure, it might look better. But in terms of time-wise, it's not going to speed up by as much people are saying it is. But Rust Console does work okay on the newest version in the old gen category. If you're below the newest version, there is no point playing this game. Really, the well and truly isn't. The FPS, the lag, everything is against you. This game needs to be played on a new gen console to have the best experience. And you could say that for literally every other game. However, this game is different. It's open world. It's always 24-hour running servers, but things people tend to not look at or overlook, is probably the word I should be using there, is the fact that the lowest consoles within the new gen category, so for example the one I'm using is the Xbox Series S, which is the smaller version with no disk drive, that will not be able to hold Rust as well as people think it does, or it does at this current time. The Series S is okay, it can run it as good as you kind of want it to. However, there's a huge jump from Series S to Series X, and the price margin and the difference in comparison of prices and the infrastructure within the console and the hardware, you know, you're going to see a big difference. And to say the Series S will be the same as the Series X running Rust Console is not right at all. In comparison, the Series S is pretty much like an old gen console compared to the Series X if we're running Rust Console on it. And then people will be like, well, the smaller or the pricey version of the console that has less price and all this and that's holding up Rust Console. Everyone needs to invest in the newest consoles. It's just going to be a infinite time lapse on just going round and round on the whole subject. Sure, you could probably get better graphics even with the Series S, for example. I don't know what it's like for PlayStation. Sure, the game will run smoother. Sure, you might get a little bit of a faster progress with updates, not as big as some people may think, but old gen isn't holding it back as much as people think. That's the point I'm trying to convey here. Sure, there is a problem where it's holding it back to an extent. Would we have minis or excavator by now? No. Will it be more of a possibility? Definitely. I cannot see a world where minis or scrap helis and excavator within the same map, you can operate these two things with old gen. If it does, if D11 pulls that off, I can only applaud them, because that is pretty crazy. I just don't think it's going to happen. I'm not going to see flying over excavator and moving big monument with minis. Two huge updates. I just cannot see D11 being able to pull it off on the optimization of both new and old gen. Now, new gen is in the same sort of thing as the old gen. Like, they both have their cons. You know, optimizing for both new and old gen is bad. The game would probably run, if I'm correct in thinking, better if it was just suited to old gen. But because obviously this came within the time that new gen was a thing, and it just happened, D11 had to optimize for both consoles. So as well as old gen, new gen are part of the problem as to why it's running the way it's running at this current moment in time. Because it's feeding off both consoles, it's not going to have the direct best outcome for how the game can possibly run, as opposed to if it was just suited for old gen or suited for new gen. Yes, I do think old gen is holding this game back, not to the extent that I think that we should just extinguish all old gen users and just make a new gen version. Do you know they're going to have to basically redo the whole game, from what I understand, and that's not going to happen. It's going to take too much time, too much money. Is it going to happen anytime soon? I can't see it happening anytime soon. They're just going to try and optimize the game, the best of both worlds for new and old gen, but I do think as the years go by, as more Christmases go by, you're going to be seeing a lot more new gen players than old gen. Let me know what you guys think in the comments section below. Do you think old gen is holding this game down a lot more than I'm saying in this video, or do you think it's holding it back relatively the same? In my opinion, I think it's holding it back, but not as big as other people may think it is. As always, let's have a conversation in the comments section below. Follow my socials in the description, subscribe if you're new around here, and I'll see you in the next one.